and we're rolling into stage 2 now. We're starting to initiate roots. And so we got to start thinking about how we're going to change our environment, how we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're starting to fertilize a little bit more. We're changing our moisture management plan, reducing mist. And we'll walk through some of that stuff here on the next slides. So let's talk about the environment in stage 2. If we wanted to be really low stress, dark conditions, minimizing any kind of air movement, putting lots of mist or high humidity in the air in stage 1, we're going to actually start to pull back on that a little bit now in stage 2. So we're going to, if possible, start to increase light levels. And if we do start to increase light levels, it's because we're just starting to strike roots. Cuttings are getting a little bit, more able to handle the environment on their own. But we're not going to just pull the shade off and start to open the curtains up in the middle of the day. We're going to wean them off from the shoulders towards the middle of the day, right? And then, as far as soil temperatures and air temperatures go, you could start to change that a little bit, but there's not much you can do in the middle of summer in terms of trying to cool down as much as you'd like. For some growers, there's a little bit of heat needed because you do potentially get some cool nights. So you may have to put a little bit of heat underneath to just keep things moving. But you can also start to increase air exchanges, right? So you can start to crack the vent a little bit more and open, maybe turn another fan on or let the roof open a little bit further so that you can get some more air exchanges, move a little bit more water through that plant. And that'll, of course, be bringing your relative humidity down. And when you're in stage 2, you need to have night mist off at this point. One of the biggest mistakes that I see from growers is not pulling that mist off quick enough. And it's human nature as a grower. The last thing you want to do is walk into your prop house in the morning and you get in there at 6:30 and all the poinsettias are flagging because you pulled the mist off too quickly. Well, as a propagator, you got to know where that line is and start backing off so that you can have mist off completely by the time you get to stage 2, with the goal of being totally off mist by day 14 if possible.
Yeah, you got to make those roots work. They need to work, otherwise they won't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, playing it safe and prop it's tough to do it because the plants will not be, you won't get them off mist as fast as you want. You will start to slow things down if you don't start to pull that back. So let's talk a little bit about fertility and moisture management. The first time you can really start putting some EC back in to the soil and to the media and fertility back in the cutting is you're starting to get into stage 2. The roots are starting to come out. They're going to start actively taking up the nutrition you put in. So it's really important at this stage that you're actually putting some EC back in. You're starting to feed the soil without fully saturating it. And you're hopefully starting to let that moisture level dry down a little bit. If you can get down to a level 3, that's going to help you push roots out. If you stay wet 4 or 5 all the time, your roots are not going to be very strong. You won't get a very strong start to your root system. It won't be very uniform. You'll have well-rooted stuff and not as well-rooted stuff. And so it just, your uniformity starts to go out the window from the very beginning if you're not careful. So it's really important. Start to get a little bit of a dry down there. Well-balanced fertilizers, ideally like a Cal Mag fertilizer that, my recommendation being that 100 to 150 part per million range. You can start to kick in some pretty good EC at this point and help those plants get going. And if you are feeding overhead and you're putting out decent parts per million, it's not a bad idea to rinse those plants off. We don't want to distort or tear up a growing tip because that could actually start branching a little earlier than we want. Won't allow that plant to grow as well as we'd like. So make sure you know your media pH as well coming out of prop, especially if you're direct sticking. You could have 0 EC and pretty darn high pH as you come out of propagation. So this slide, I really want to just kind of try to visually illustrate what a poinsettia might look like as it comes out of prop. In this case, this was a crop I grew years and years ago, 4 1/4 inch crop, direct stuck in week 32. Took my first media pH and EC sample in week 33. And, if you look at those graphs down at the bottom on the left-hand side is the pH. On week 33, pH is high. Week 34, it's still high. Well, it starts to come down week 34, 35, 36. Now look at the table on the graph on the right-hand side. And you can see kind of the opposite effect, right? That's the EC. EC in week 33, there's a little bit of EC in there. By the time you get to 34, nothing. And so I had to work really hard to start recharging that plant, getting the EC back in. And you can see week 35, 36, as that EC starts to come back up, pH is going down at the same time. And that relationship is consistent. You'll see that in the liner, you'll see that in your finished stage. As you start to feed more and EC goes up, pH starts to come down. If you have very little feed in there, you'll be right in the high side of your pH. So really, we just wanted to illustrate what that, in this case, a direct stick 4 1/4 inch would look like coming right out of prop. It's got nothing in it and pH is too high. You got to start fixing that. Bring EC up, bring your pH down.